Hi there. Good morning. I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss American Trading. Thanks for tuning into our podcast, The Secret War on Cash, where we take a hard look at some of the changing dynamics in our financial markets, our economy, both domestically and abroad. I have with me my co-host, Chris Agelastos. Chris, good morning. How are you this fine day?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Fine chilly day. We warmed up in Arizona and now we're getting back into the cooler temperatures. For those of you tuning in, we are at a brisk like 62 degrees, I think it's going to get to today or something like that.
Yeah.
So feels like winter's back upon us again. All right, well, let's get into it here. We've been talking to 2025. We've been talking about how quickly things have been progressing there. And this first article here, from rug pulls to rate cuts, everything everywhere all at once. And we'll get talking about this. I don't know how much in depth we'll be able to get in it because it is a pretty long article. And I encourage those of you tuning in, click on that link and give it a read yourself because it's very interesting. It kind of touches all the bases, if you will. And I don't know about you, Chris, but the that term rug pull, I wasn't familiar with that until I read this article. I didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, I know what it means to have the rug pulled out from underneath you,
Right.
but it's something specific that they're talking about as it relates to cryptos. And here's the thing. I mean, when you look at what's going on in our economy and what's shaping our economy right now, the headlines say it all. We've got these tariffs that it's yet to be seen, what kind of financial fallout or economic fallout that will create. We've got all of the uh, continued evolution, I'll call it, of AI, which is taking over, and there's a lot of good to be had with that, but certainly some bad to be found with that as well. Cryptos, they continue to dominate the news, but as I mentioned, there's just a whole lot of moving parts with that. We'll put it that way. With the rug pulls,
Sure.
they talking here about you can buy cryptos and get the appreciation from it, but then also the yields that they have in relation to like publicly traded companies. So it creates a whole nother thing. And then you get into investor sentiment. I'm just reading the headlines here, the rates, the
Yeah.
economy, and then they do finally give us a bottom line. So tell me what your take is on this, Chris, or what if you have a bottom line to it as well.
There's just a lot going on. I think that really, is the idea behind this article is there are so many variables that we're having to deal with in the economy right now. Obviously, tariffs, been one of the bigger items in the news and the potential, negative effects from that. It's certainly causing uncertainty right now. Hiring has slowed because companies don't exactly know, what the next few months are going to look like. Especially when you have manufacturing type businesses and you're importing a lot of products, which many companies do here in the U.S. Um, so that just adds to all of the uncertainty. And then, of course, AI. We're trying to figure out the best way to actually use AI. We hear a lot about how neat it is, and it's certainly improved. Some of our web searches and summarizing content and things like that, which are handy. But there's
Sure.
a ton of money being poured into the AI sector, and we're not really sure yet how we're going to be able to turn that into profits. And so there's still going to be a lot of volatility there, and that's probably not going to end anytime soon. As it develops and this kind of unravels, we'll have a better idea, obviously, of how beneficial it really can be to us. And then, of course, yeah, the crypto side of things. I watch crypto a little bit, but I'm admittedly no expert. I mean, I've just dabbled a little bit, but I mean, we're seeing a lot of volatility. I mean, there have been some big dips
Right.
recently, and one thing I didn't think about that they point out in here is, those are all potentially investable dollars into different markets that now have just disappeared. Now, hopefully it will bounce back, but in the meantime, that's all just money that's now off the table. So You
Sure.
just have all of these different variables, and the bottom line is there's probably going to be quite a bit of volatility, and there's still significant downside risk in the market, even though trading volume is continuing to hold pretty high given all of these variables.
Sure. Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. I mean, as well as the gold market has done and silver over the last several
Hmm.
years, and it's expected to continue to do, by the way. But it's been talked about really since crypto started taking off that it's believed that a large amount of the money that has gone into cryptos, those were gold minded people, if you will. And that's why, in fact, when you hear
Right.
people talk about cryptos and what have you, they often are, the way they describe it is scarcity. Some people even use the word like tangible, which I don't fully understand, but this privacy, all the characteristics that would
Yeah.
define or describe gold. And my point being is I can imagine that with as well as it's done and as well as it's expected to continue doing, if all that money that had been going into cryptos had, been going into gold market, we'd be looking at gold prices probably being three or four fold what they are currently. So
Right.
now that you mentioned tariffs, let's talk about our
Hmm.
next article here. The We have the tariff threats and uncertainty could weigh on consumers, drag down the U.S. economy. That's what a government report is suggesting. To which I would say, no, duh, it's going to do that stuff. Um, I mean, the funny thing is, as you get into this article, and tariffs, I think tariffs certainly have pretty well dominated the financial news, even prior to Trump getting into office, as he was threatening even prior to taking office. But the thing that's interesting is like, the even in this article, they're talking about how they're optimistic about inflation remaining in check and economic growth taking place and things of this nature. But I don't understand how they could even say that in so much as that everybody knows these tariffs could be a radical game changer in terms of everything in the economy.
Hmm.
When you start whacking people with tariffs, and the consequence of that is we're likely, it's I'd say it's more expected than not that that in and of itself is going to be an inflationary move. And so I guess the thing that I find interesting about this is that it looks as though, and it's, when I say it looks as though, I mean it is inevitable that these tariffs are coming. These countries really don't seem all that phased by it. I mean, they certainly would have liked to avoid it as much as possible, but it's not an absolute deterrent like I think President Trump and all of us would hope it would be. So, I mean, do you think that these tariffs can happen and our economy can get healthy and our inflation can stay in check, or is that a pipe dream?
No, it definitely. Of course, I'm an optimist typically. So I do think it can be a good thing. Right now, really, it's kind of like you alluded to. It's been a whole lot of smoke and noise, and hasn't really had a whole lot of effect yet. But it's still keeping people on their toes. They talk specifically in here about consumers and just all the uncertainty that we're having to deal with, and consumer spending is dipping because of it. As I was reading this article, I just thought about my own situation. I mean, when I was at Costco this weekend, I'm rather than just grabbing everything I think I need, I'm taking a look at the cart and saying, maybe this can wait a couple of weeks. I don't really need this or that, and it sounds like other people are doing the same thing right now,
Right.
just because we don't know where things are headed. And even though inflation, they talk about how it's cooled a little bit in here, from 2.6% to 2.5. I mean, I'm not sure that I'm going to actually feel that 1/10 of a percent in my pocket, but
Sure.
um, all these tariff talks, I'm sure some of them are going to go into effect. Again, we don't know what percentage they're going to be, but a lot of the imports that we bring in from Canada, Mexico, and China could certainly reverse this little bit of inflation progress. So
Right.
um, the other thing too, government job cuts. I mean, we've been hearing a lot about this. Doge and a lot of the waste that they're trimming, which is a good thing. But the flip side of that is there's a lot of government job cuts right now, and those are households that we're helping to support this economy with their spending. And so if those people aren't essentially retrained and moved into other areas of government, or if not government, even the private sector, we could see even more slowing on the economic side there. So there's just a lot of unknowns right now, and I think that's kind of the general sentiment is I better be cautious with my spending and save for a rainy day, if you will.
Right. Well, and I think the concern should be, at least that I have, is that there are a lot of unknowns. You're absolutely right. And the concern being when you have a lot of unknowns and you have a very weak or shaky foundation, as we do, meaning our debt, our deficits, just all of
Hmm.
the fragility of our economy, and that you have those unknowns lingering, that's concerning because all it's going to take is the wrong thing at the right time, and we could have some major issues or disruptions out there financially and otherwise. So, all right, well, thank you for that. And for those of you tuning in, if you have not contacted Swiss America to receive your free copy of the Secret War on Cash, you can do that by calling us at 1-800-289-2646 or visiting us online at www.swissamerica.com. You can actually even text and we can get that report to you. So thanks for tuning in. If you're not subscribed, please do so. Chris, thank you for the information. And all of you tuning in, have a great rest of your day. We'll see you soon.
Yep. Take care.